With the tax season right around the corner, a partner from Lecky Business Consulting has some advice for new people who are filing their taxes this year. According to Ryan Dice, filing before the deadline and using different tax software are good ideas. He also says there's still time to lower your income tax.
Say if your income is really high for 2023, you can plan around by buying RSPs. You have up until February 29th to buy RSPs to bring your taxable income down to what you feel may be best.
Dice also adds that school-related income, such as loans, scholarships, and bursaries, are part of the tax returns.
Go into your email login, and they usually have tax stuff within that system there, and you should be able to retrieve that information there, and you can get a tax credit for your tuition, or if your income's too low to use it, you could carry it forward to future years too.
The deadline for filing a personal tax return is, of course, April 30th. A local man is preparing for his first ever Physique competition, a show that is different from bodybuilding but has similar preparations. Our Ben Loan reports.
The world-class gym is home to over 100 members, but one member you see most often is Tom Irvine. Irvine is training for his first ever physique competition. Under guidance of personal trainer Renee Weinkoff, Irvine is in the gym twice a day, 6 times a week. With all the work he's putting in, Irvine's intrinsic motivation helps him when times get tough.
I can't quit. I have been working on this. Like I said, I'm going to be 53 years old when I compete. I've been working at this for too long, too hard. I can't quit. Well, leave it all here, sorry. Take nothing home. That's it.
Physique shows are a smaller version of the commonly known bodybuilding shows. Irvine is competing in the Alberta Naturals competition in Calgary July 20th. One special rule with this show is that no steroids are allowed. Irvine is in the Grandmaster category, which will have him competing against men 50 years and older. But Irvine never tries to think about age.
I rarely try to think about the age thing. The whole point of me exercising to begin with was to not get old. My plan to be, when I hit 60 years old, is to turn 40. So it's basically take the number out of it, come in here, work hard.
With 5 months till competition, Irvine is currently eating and lifting as heavy as possible. When they hit around the 3-month mark, Irvine will cut his calories and add more cardio to put him in perfect shape for July. Weinkoff, who has competed in bodybuilding shows, has experienced the process and knows what he needs to do with Irvine.
This regime is what's going to bulk him up. This is the one that's putting on the size. After this, we switch into higher reps, higher intensity, and that will cut him up, and you'll see all the shreds and striations in between the muscles and all that stuff start flowing out. But right now, it's just about getting him bigger, stronger.
Weinkoff also understands how Irvine has made him a better personal trainer.
In all honesty, the best thing about Tom is he can make me laugh. We could be working out and he'll throw out a joke or something silly, and it just makes the workout funner. Tom is one of the best guys I've coached because he listens to every single thing I say. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Whatever I tell him to do, he's doing. He's listening. He'll get the results I'm expecting.
Irvine is unsure if he will do more shows in the future, but is looking straight ahead as he prepares for Calgary. For Primetime Local News, I'm Ben Loan.
The art of breakdancing is one that most people can say they're quite unskilled in. In this week's Beyond the Classroom, though, we see how the students at Jack Kemp are breaking out of their shells with their breakdancing unit.
Jack Kemp has been improving their dance unit, incorporating a breakdancer to give a workshop to all grade levels.
It was an opportunity through Dance Saskatchewan to promote dance and physical activity throughout the entire province. So we had that opportunity to apply for this, and they matched the dancer with the school, and so we ended up getting Brandon, and he is a break dancer, and the kids are loving it.
The workshop is designed to be less technique intensive. Rather, the focus is on having fun and not being afraid to fail.
It's hard to get everybody to master technique in the next 10 to 50 minutes, right? So with that being said, I mainly focus on the mindset, because the mindset is what people get out there. The mindset of a youth to try something new and be encouraged to be part of something, right? It's easy to put someone in and just force them to do how many drills, but when they have to perform it, it changes up their whole aspect.
The students have high praise for both the breakdancing unit and Brandon himself.
It felt good because like when we did the cipher, we express ourselves and give us more confident.
It like helps kids express how they want to like feel while dancing without being judged or like feeling that they can't do something that they want to do.
Positive is just radiating off of him, and it's like he took his like time to teach us the moves, and it definitely paid off. We remembered most of the moves.
And that's all for this week's edition of Beyond the Classroom.
At Lakeland College, our students go beyond the classroom for immersive, hands-on learning experiences. It's about experiencing the real world, because the real world doesn't wait, and neither do we.
Thomas Wildman joins me now, and he was going to show us his breakdancing skills, but instead he's just going to bring us the weather.
Yeah, well, there's not enough room in here, and my luck isn't good enough where I definitely would hit one of our numerous TVs and monitors sitting around here. However, you could actually breakdance outside. It's so nice out right now, and that's very unlike January for weather, as we are going to be able to see in a few seconds here with our current conditions. Pardon me, I would need to go back a slide here. But so looking at today's weather here, as you can see, today our high was of 6 degrees with a low of -7, infinitely higher than the -2, or our high was 6, low was -2. Usually the high today would be a -7 with a low of -19. So we are well above the usual normals. One other thing we are well different from the usual normals is the average precipitation. As we are at the end of the month, it's 19, there usually is about 19 inches of snow about right now. We have only had 1.3 inches of snow so far here in January as we move now into February. Taking a look at the current conditions, we're sitting at a warm 5 degrees. With wind chill, it's going to be down to 1 degree right now. Humidity is about 60%, but very nice weather here in Lloydminster. Taking a look now at Cold Lake, they're a little bit warmer than us with a 6 degrees and a little less wind chill, down to 4 degrees for them out there. And then looking into Saskatchewan in North Battleford, they're also at 5 degrees, a little less of a wind chill there as well, though, to 3 degrees for them out there in North Battleford. Taking a look now at our current temperatures, we'll start on the Alberta side. Cold Lake sitting at 5 degrees, as we've previously mentioned here. Bonnyville sitting at 6 degrees. Lac La Biche all the way up at 7 degrees. St. Paul and Marwayne both at that 6 degree mark as well. Then as we go a little bit more west, Vegreville and Vermilion at 5 degrees. Edmonton sitting at a nice 6 degrees, as are Wainwright and Provost. Taking a look at the Saskatchewan side, Isla Cross is at 6 degrees, as is Pearceland and Meadow Lake. Green Lake is going to be our warmest part here on the Saskatchewan side in the Lakeland region at 7 degrees. St. Walburg at 5. We're actually the coldest right now at that current temperature of about 4 degrees. It's a little bit different from how the weather is out at the Lloydminster Airport. And then 3 degrees at Maidstone and North Battleford right now, with Macklin at 6 degrees. Taking a look now at tonight's forecast, we're going to be going down to a low of -1. Clear and breezy for that. Very low chance of precipitations. We likely will see nothing there. Cold Lake is going to look pretty much exactly the same of us. They have a 2% higher chance of precipitation. Likely going to be nothing there, though. -1 there as well, partly cloudy. And North Battleford is going to be the coldest out here in Saskatchewan. Clear and breezy with a low of -3, 1% chance of precipitation. So I'm going to just say that's a 0%. And if it somehow snows out in North Battleford coming up here tonight, we'll see what happens there. Looking now at our coming up 3-day forecast. Thursday, it's going to be nice and warm here with a high of 5 degrees. Very similar today, low of -3. Friday, it'll cool off a little bit, 2 degrees with a low of -4. It's going to be mostly sunny there. And then unfortunately on Saturday, we're going to see a 65% chance of snow. It'll be a little bit in the afternoon, a high of 2 degrees, and a bit cooler at a low of -8. But that will be it for our first look at the weather forecast. We will have some more news headlines after the break.
Welcome back. A new film is coming to Lloydminster and the surrounding areas this weekend, as our own Callum Hawker dives in and gets the latest scoop about the premiere.
I'm joined by Kelvin Redvers, a multi-award winning Aboriginal filmmaker and writer, talking about a new film opening coming right here to Lloydminster. Kelvin, thanks so much for your time today. How's it going?
Oh my goodness, thanks for having me. This is the most exciting part of making a movie.
Well, hey, thanks again for joining us. I know this community is super excited about this upcoming movie. So tell us a bit more about the film.
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up in the Northwest Territories, but I actually have family in the Lloydminster area. And so, anybody who's lived up in the further north regions, like I think we're used to driving on really kind of remote, quiet highways. I know where I'm from, sometimes you can drive between towns and not see anybody for like an hour or 2 hours kind of thing. And especially in wintertime, if it's minus 25, like, if you're not prepared, those are genuinely like dangerous situations. So, being a filmmaker, you want to create movies that feel real to who you are. And so, in thinking of what should be my first feature film, it felt really natural to be like, oh, well, what if I set a movie, in the place where I'm from? And so it was decided, like, this idea of using these like cold remote highways, an experience I think so many of us know, which is that nighttime driving when you're that little bit extra scared. But in this movie, it's an Indigenous woman who is the lead character. She's driving home to her remote First Nation in the middle of nowhere on a snowy, quiet highway. And there's a stranger in a semi truck that is hunting her. And so, if that gives you a little bit of chills, that's the goal, because it is a thriller. It's meant to be like those kind of pulpy thrillers that, people, that you might like from the 70s and 80s, those kind of old fashioned style movies. That's what this was meant to be. And it's called Cold Road.
I'm sure everyone here in Alberta can relate, especially with the polar vortex we just experienced a couple of weeks ago. So where can people watch this film, Kelvin?
So it's coming to Lloydminster, which is really exciting. We just started playing in theaters and we've expanded. I think we're at about 14 theaters and the May 6th cinema. We're in a handful in the area. So we're playing in Cold Lake. We're playing in Wetaskiwin. I think we're playing in Meadow Lake as well too in Saskatchewan. And so it's just really exciting. Our lead actress is Roseanne Supernault, who's an incredible Indigenous actress. She's from Northern Alberta herself. She lives in Edmonton. And so it's been really exciting. I'm originally from Northwest Territories. I've spent a lot of time in Alberta. I live in BC now, but just like, this is the type of movie that was made for us, basically. And like, if you think of Hollywood, like that doesn't happen very often. And so it has a powerful performance from our lead, Roseanne Supernault. And I just think it's the kind of movie that so far in the places we've played, like it's had such a positive energy. Like people in the audiences are just clapping. Like the Red Deer Theater, I had a friend who went there. And at the end of the movie, these are just random people who went to the movie in Red Deer. They were clapping at the end of this film. It's meant to be kind of a crowd pleaser. It's going to be very intense. So like if you like movies where you're like biting your fingernails the whole time, yeah, that's what you get a big bag of popcorn, go to the theaters, come watch this amazing film.
That sounds great. And you've done a lot in the filmmaking world. Can you give some advice to someone who's maybe trying to gain some experience in the filmmaking industry?
You got to make stuff, just make things. And as the more that you like, when I started, I was 15 years old and I just started making silly little short films like with my friends, like way up in the north. And those movies ended up playing at film festivals like all over Canada and the world. And you don't know what it's like until you just start jumping in. Like you just got to start doing it. And for me, it took 20 years to get to this point of like having finished like an actual feature film. But if you love it, if you genuinely love what you do and you keep sticking to it, then like you do eventually find success. And this was a difficult movie to film. We were shooting, we actually shot in the north. We did stunts. We had a stunt car, a stunt truck, stunt drivers. We were smashing cars and trucks together. So like there's action scenes in this movie and we were doing all this in like minus 20 weather. But it makes a difference for you, the audience, to be like, hey, this is real. Like, they're not faking any of this. Like we actually smashed cars and trucks together. And especially, both Indigenous and just Northern audiences, like I think they're going to get a lot out of it. I have an aunt that is my Dene aunt. And when I was growing up, she always had just bookshelves full of like pulpy VHS movies, from like the 70s, 80s, 90s. And I think we can all think of that vibe of what those movies are like. And like that's what we're trying to tap into. And, it's rare. It is rare for this to happen, to have an independent, Northern produced, Indigenous produced, locally Alberta produced as well too movie come play these theaters. And like, they're worth going to, both to support the local, just like, the emerging films, but also because this movie's a rollicking good time.
And lastly, Kelvin, when can people here in Lloydminster see this film?
Friday. So that is very soon. It'll play the whole weekend. I believe it's playing the whole week starting February 2nd at the movie theaters, you know?
Kelvin, thanks again. This sounds like a great movie. I know I'm looking forward to it.
This is the kind of movie too where it's fun when like it's the kind of movie where if people are like like shouting things at the screen here and there or like whispering like, "Oh no, don't do it," or like, "Yeah, woo," like that has actually been happening in the theaters, and we want it to be that kind of group experience. So bring people. Like it's the kind of thing where if you have a big group, you can hold hands with each other and just like feel really invested in this film. Yeah, it's a pretty special experience, I think.
Well, I'm sure that will be happening quite a lot. So, like Kelvin said, bring your friends, and thanks again, Kelvin.
Yeah, thank you.
With how close the standings are and playoffs quickly approaching, every point matters for the Lloydminster Bobcats as they head on the road to take on the Camrose Kodiaks. This will be the third matchup between the Kodiaks and the Bobcats this season. The first two were wins at home for the Bobcats, where they outscored the Kodiaks 8-2. The Bobcats currently sit ninth in the standings with 50 points. They're only 1 point behind the Drumheller Dragons and 3 points behind the Bonnievale Pontiacs. With the upcoming AJHL playoffs format currently up in the air and limited games remaining, every game is incredibly important for the Bobcats in the final months of the AJHL season. Time now to take a look at all of the pet pictures you've been sharing with us for our Pets of the Day.
We want to see your pet. Send photos of your pet and their name to have them featured on Pet of the Day.
Stephanie Dobson is back with us again this week. Stephanie is a lawyer, mediator, and online educator with Hankett Divorce Law and Mediation offices in Lloydminster and Edmonton. Stephanie, thanks again for joining us.
Yeah, thanks again, Stacey.
Well, it's another episode of Healthy Thriving Family After Divorce, and we were talking about how January is divorce month and going through some tips this past week. But today we're going to talk about what you do in the initial stages, just when things are getting started. So the first thing I want to ask is, if you're considering separating or divorce in the end, what do you suggest is the first step? How do you get started with this process?
Well, usually making that decision to separate is one of the most difficult things to do. It's one of the most difficult parts of it, is embarking on that journey. So, I recommend that even before that final decision is made, you may want to do a few things to become as prepared as possible. And I've got 4 ideas for our viewers. So the first one is to do some research. There's great resources online if you check it out. I certainly recommend that you be careful with what you search for. So if you search respectful divorce or positive divorce resources, you'll find something very different than if you just search out plain divorce or divorce strategy. Of course, my clients are able to use our e-learning platform for separating and divorcing families, and that's a one-stop shop, upanotchlearning.com, as people may be familiar with. Second, books are a great way to dig deeper into the subject. In our e-learning platform, we do have a whole bunch of recommendations for some positive and constructive books around separation and divorce. Third, find supportive people. So there's toxic people in the world and there's supportive people in the world. And so it's really important to find that really small group of people that are going to be exactly what you need during your separation. And fourth, I recommend strongly that you get in with a divorce professional like a lawyer or a mediator, just to learn how divorce works, what some of your entitlements might be, and some other valuable information. And don't forget that you don't necessarily have to hire your lawyer right at the initial consultation. You might just want to get a bit of a lay of the land and understand a little bit more about what your options are, negotiation options, and some more substantive options are as you go forward with your separation, eventually.
Now, when you reach out to a law office for the first time, Stephanie, what can you expect?
Well, that's a bit of a difficult one because, of course, every office is just slightly different on how they do their initial client intake. So, first, let's talk about how you should contact the office. So, there's a few ways, of course. So, phone call is, one of the traditional ways to contact a law office. But how do you know if I mean, I guess people don't probably have phone books anymore, but how do you know whether you want to phone this office or that office? And so let's dive a little bit deeper. So I highly recommend, I was talking about research a moment ago. I highly recommend that you go to that firm's website and do a little bit of research, check them out, see if their style seems to match what you're looking for. But you can sometimes contact the lawyer or the office directly by email, or sometimes there's even a contact form on the website. And don't forget that you'll learn a lot about that firm. So if you want to figure out, in our office, for example, we do all out of court resolutions. So you would find that out from the website. If you call in, you'll want to make sure that you tell them that you're calling them about a separation or divorce, and then they'll put you through to that particular person. And, here's a couple of things that in that initial call that you'll probably find is first thing that they're going to do is they're going to ask you your full name and the other party's full name. And that's for the purpose of what's called a conflict check. So, as part of the Law Society, we have to make sure that we're not representing two parties. And so we have to make sure that we haven't heard from the other person. In that initial call, if you do call our office, we only get a couple of sentences as to the situation between you and your spouse. And what we do is we put you straight in for a 5-minute call where I can go into a little bit more detail about our services.
Okay, and when you have that initial consultation, when you first show up to the office, whomever you choose, what do you expect from that consultation? What happens there?
Yeah, so for our process, we break that down into two different processes. So when you initially call our office, we'll do what's called a 5-minute call, and that's just for process, and we don't necessarily go into your substantive things of kind of what your story is. But then, if our services are appropriate, so if people are looking for that out of court resolution, then we will book you in for that full initial consultation. So that initial consultation is usually about an hour. For us, when we book that consultation, we need three things from you. We need our questionnaire to be filled out. We need valid photo ID, and then there might be certain documentation if you've got a draft separation agreement or if you've got an existing court order or something like that that will be specifically asked for from you. You'll have to bring that into the consultation. Then, when you're in the consultation itself, for my consultations, I break them into three parts. So, the first part is the major part, which is substantively what's going on for you. So, we go through what we call your story. So, from your perspective, here's the main topics that we need to cover. So we'll go through things like parenting, we'll talk about finances, and we'll talk about division of your assets and debts, and kind of what the lay of the land is around all of those topics. Secondly, we'll talk about negotiation process. So our viewers are very familiar with us focusing on not just substantive matters, but also process. How do you want to get divorced? Not what do you want in your divorce. So usually we're looking for, if you've chosen the legal process, what does that look like? If you've chosen the collaborative process or mediation process, what does that look like? I want to make sure that we answer all of your questions. And then finally, I'm a task list guru. I always like to make sure that we know our next steps. And so we'll make sure that we talk about those next steps, timing, are you ready to proceed now? Do you want to wait a little bit of time and that sort of thing? So that's the consultation in a nutshell.
All right, Stephanie. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and we will be back to chat with you again next week.
Okay, thanks, Stacey.
Furniture set and design supplied by Furniture Gallery, downtown Lloydminster.
We are here with 5-time Country Music Ontario Award nominee, Nicole Ray. Welcome to Primetime Local News. It's an absolute pleasure to get you on. How are you doing? How was your weekend? How's your week starting out?
Great, great. Thanks so much for having me, Sarah. It's always nice chatting with you. And it's a bit of a rainy, sad-looking day here today. So this is always a nice way to bring some sunshine to the day.
It definitely brings some sunshine into our world as well. It is fantastic to get you on. So, you are new to our viewers and our listeners. So, tell us a bit more about you and your music.
Well, I have been in the country industry for almost 12 years now. I have four different records of music you can check out across all the streaming platforms. And of course, I have a brand new single out right now called Guilty. I'm obsessed with the color purple, if you can't tell from the hair and the surroundings. And other than music, I am obsessed with watching Friends, and I could probably quote the whole thing.
It's a really funny show. It is so good. Now, what is also awesome is your Harmonia Fest. So, we got to talk more about that and how you came up with this.
Yeah, I mean, it started back in 2019. I was just kind of looking at, all the posters that were coming out for upcoming festivals for the year, and it was just seeing a lack of females, especially a lack of female headliners, or even some that just like were lacking in females altogether. And I was so frustrated. I remember calling my mom and being like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, I'm never gonna get on any of these if they don't want any females. And I think, we need to see some change. And I don't know how to do that. And she was like, well, what if you just start your own? And I was like, yeah, okay, because you can just start your own festival. But turns out you can, with a lot of hard work and a lot of help from some amazing people who have helped me make this happen. And we're gearing up for our fifth Harmonia Fest this summer.
That is so exciting. And I've seen it grow and I've seen what you've done with it over the last several years. You've got an independent and emerging female artists on those posters and on those stages. And also, you've thrown in some men in there who've been great supporters of women in the industry as well. So, in your opinion, what can festivals do? What can media do? And what can radio do to better support women in the music industry?
We just need to hear them. This has always been my theory. I think, we tend to gravitate towards the music that we know, right? I mean, even when you hear a song on the radio for the first time, maybe you're like, meh, whatever. But then the more you hear it, you're like, oh, I love this song. Like, now I know the words. This is such a jam. And I think for some reason, we just are failing to give opportunities to women. We're failing to put them on the radio or put them on the festival lineup. But then it's so easy for people to be like, oh, well, that's not what the audience wants. Well, nobody's going to be demanding something they've never heard if they've never heard it. So I think really the secret is just giving more opportunities for women to be heard. There are so many talented females, especially in country music, especially in Canada. And I think if we just gave more opportunities for these women to be heard, then they would definitely be in demand.
I fully agree with that. And with that, before we talk about your latest release, Guilty, where can everybody find out more about you and get your music?
So you can check it out on my website, which is Nicole Ray with 2ys.com. I'm also on all the social media platforms at Nicole Ray with 2ys music. And of course, all my music is across the streaming platforms. So Apple Music, Google, Amazon, Spotify, YouTube, all the things. You can find it on across all these platforms. So check it out, please.
Definitely recommend it, checking it out. I feel like your 2024 is going to be massive because your latest song, Guilty, it is a powerhouse of a song. It is bold, it is sassy, and you just feel your emotion when you listen to it. So tell us a bit more about how this song came to be and the writing process behind it.
Well, first of all, thank you. I love that review of it. I'm all for a sassy song, and this one definitely is. I wrote this with the producer of the song, Douglas Romano, and another artist who formerly went by Crystal Lee, but she now goes by Audi. She actually just dropped a new single as well, so you can go check that out. I went into this kind of with this mindset of all of this court jargon that is in the song, of course. And it was because I was watching this TV show where the character is like a legal clerk in the show. So I was just like in the mindset this day for court. And I went into the write and I was like, I really want to write a love song, but I don't know how to pair this imagery with the idea of a love song. And Crystal made some kind of joke about how, oh, well, we've all been in that like passionate love where it feels so good, it seems like it should be illegal. And I was like, that's it. That's exactly what I'm feeling right now. And so we sort of, paired those ideas together, and Guilty was born.
It is a fabulous, fabulous song, and I'm so excited that it's out in the world. So everybody get Guilty wherever you get your songs now. Nicole, it was an absolute pleasure getting to chat with you today. Is there anything else you want to mention or talk about?
I just want to say thank you so much to everybody who supported the song thus far. I really, really appreciate it. I love seeing all of my fans, just everything that they post online and where they're listening and how they're listening. So thank you so much. And thank you, Sarah, for making the time to chat with me. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Thank you for joining me. It was a pleasure.
Well, tickets to the Super Bowl in Las Vegas have already become the most expensive ever for the NFL showcase. According to reseller TickPick, tickets are going for an average of $9,800 a piece. The price is 70% more than last year's game in Arizona. The previous record of just over $7,000 was set in 2021 in Tampa, Florida. TickPick credits the game's location as the biggest factor driving ticket demand. The defending champion Kansas City Chiefs will face the San Francisco 49ers February 11th.
Yeah, so it's on my bucket list to go to a Super Bowl game, but I don't exactly have nearly $10,000 to just, burn away, plus everything else there, because that's not including like accommodations. For us, it would cost a good amount of money to get down there on a plane, and when you're in Vegas, I haven't been there yet personally, but I can't imagine you're going there just to watch a football game only. I feel like there's a gamble there, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. A couple months rent for sure. All right, thanks for joining us and have a good evening.